Hello, all. Welcome back to another episode of Doctors Go Live. I am Nina Sharul Khan, your host for Doctors Go Live, and today we are talking about a silent killer disease, hypertension. Okay, now let us know if you're tuning in. I can see Angeline, Momo, Emma, 𝘋𝘰𝘤𝘵𝘬. Welcome, everybody. So nice to see each and every one of you. Okay, so where are you tuning in from, and what are you hoping to find out in today's episode, Hypertension, the Silent Killer? Let us know in the comment section. Okay, now if you share this video out, you get to take part in our Doctors Go Live quiz happening right at the end of the Q&A, where you get to win some flask bottles. Also, at the same time, I think it looks clear. Okay, never mind. So all this is happening right here in Doctors Go Live with me, Nina, and our special guest for today is consultant internal medicine physician from Columbia Asia Hospital, Bintulu, Dr. Mohd Fikri Bin Nasir. So hypertension, what is it? It's better known as high blood pressure. Now you can't see it, and most of the time you can't feel it. But if you're among the millions of people worldwide affected by this disease, it can double your risk of a heart attack, quadruple your odds for a stroke, and increases your risk for heart failure, kidney disease, vision loss, dementia, and so many more. Scary, right? All right, so that is why it is known as a silent killer. And today we are looking into all this so that none of this happens to you guys, okay? Happening right here on Doctors Go Live. Now, if you know someone who's going to benefit from this information and this sharing, is going to be super useful for them, please make sure you share this video out on your social media, tag your friends, your loved one, follow us on our social media pages, because this episode could make a difference to someone and could save their lives, okay? And while you're sharing this video, let's take a look at this video.
Hypertension or high blood pressure is often called the silent killer, as it usually has no symptoms, and yet it affects millions of people worldwide and is a major risk factor for heart attack and stroke. Join me, Dr. Fikri Bin Nasir, consultant internal medicine physician from Columbia Asia Bintulu, in the next episode of Doctors Go Live, where I will be sharing information about hypertension, its effect on your health, and steps to take in order to prevent it from happening to you. So don't forget to join me on Wednesday, 24th May at 3 p.m. See ya.
All right, welcome to Doctors Go Live, where today we are talking about the disease known as the silent killer, hypertension, or better known as high blood pressure. And here to help shed some light on hypertension, how it affects our health, and the actions we can take to bring our numbers down to healthier levels, please welcome consultant internal medicine physician, Dr. Mohd Fikri Bin Nasir from Columbia Asia Hospital, Bintulu. Welcome, Doc. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nina. Thanks for everyone who's joining in.
Yeah, and Doc, so the people are, the audience is saying, especially Momo, says she's got so many questions to ask you. So hope you can answer lah. Banyak benda nak tanya ni. And 𝘋𝘰𝘤𝘵𝘬𝘵 is saying, can't wait to hear from Doc. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
happy to help.
Okay, so before we begin, in every episode, just to remind everyone, right at the end of the show, we have our Doctors Go Live quiz, where today we've got some flask bottles up for grabs. So if you want to win that prize, please make sure you listen to Doc, because he's got all the answers in today's episode, and make sure you let me know in the comment section if you want to win those flask bottles. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to type it out as you're watching the episode, and then we're gonna look back at those questions and answer it right at the end, okay, of the presentation. All right, so let's jump right in. Now, before we begin, Doc, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hi everyone, so my name is Dr. Mohd Fikri Bin Nasir, or just call me Dr. Fikri. So I'm a consultant of internal medicine physician in Columbia Asia Bintulu. So the internal medicine net is basically an area of medicine where you look after, as it suggests, it's internal medicine for heart, lung, gastroenterology, and also a bit of neurology as well. So a bit of everything. So that's what I do. So if you guys have any questions or anything related to that, you can visit me here.
Okay, so basically, internal medicine is everything that's inside. That's a lot of things, isn't it?
Yes,
A lot, yeah.
Okay, definitely. So, why is it important that we talk about today's episode? What are you hoping the audience takes home from this episode?
Yeah, so as we're going to discuss a little bit later, hypertension is very common in our society. So for that reason, I would like to raise awareness about this issue so people can look after themselves. And if they haven't got hypertension, so that we can do something about it to prevent it from happening. And if they already have the hypertensions, then they should do something about it so that you don't get all the complications that we're going to talk about.
Wow. Okay, because it's that big an issue, huh?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go straight into it. And Momo already got question even before we start. Don't worry. Ng Pei Kwang sings, Doc, your voice is a bit soft. So if you could speak
Ah,
louder, that would be great. Yeah. All
sure,
right.
I'll
So
try.
let's get
Yeah.
straight. Okay. Let's get straight into with the basics, Doc. What exactly do we mean by hypertension or high blood pressure so that we're all on the same page? Yeah.
Okay. So
Now, what is it?
hypertension,
Mm,
yeah. So hypertension, the talk today is about hypertension and why is it the silent killer as we know it. So what is it? Who gets it? And what's the symptoms? And later on, we're going to talk about diagnosis and the treatment.
okay.
So
Awesome.
hypertension, yeah,
We're going to cover all this. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
exactly, yes. So hypertension is, in a layman term, we call it, high blood pressure. What is it, blood pressure? Blood pressure is basically a measurement of the pressure in our artery. And how we measure it, we use the blood pressure machine or sphygmomanometer. As you might already aware about it, just put a cuff on the arms, and then this will give us two numbers, the upper number and the lower number. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what it means by the upper number is a systolic blood pressure. Systolic means there is a measurement of pressure within our arteries during or when our heart is pumping, right? And the lower number is the pressure within our arteries when our heart relax. Okay, so both
Ah,
numbers
okay.
are important, but the systolic or the when the heart is pumping is probably more important than the diastolic. However, both, as I say, is more important, right? So, and how do we measure this and also diagnose the hypertension? Is we need to be taking the measurement on two occasions, and we should be at rest and shouldn't be under stress, right? And take the blood pressure and take an average of that. And that's how we get our blood pressure and then to diagnose it whether we have high blood pressure or not. So the normal blood pressure should be less than 140 over 90.
Mm-hmm. And the resting one at
Yes,
the
you should.
bottom. Okay.
So 140 is the upper number and the 90 is
Uh-huh.
the lower. So the
Okay. So
target
it
should
should be
be
below 140.
at, yes.
Okay. So that is a normal blood pressure. Okay. And is this okay? Let's check out the next slide. Yeah. Is it very common?
Is very, very common.
Mm-hmm.
So in the whole world is estimated about 1.28 billion adults aged between 30 to 79 years old have hypertension. So in Malaysia alone, if you take someone who's aged more than 18 years old, so 3 out of 10 will have hypertension. And if we take a group of people more than 30 years, it will be 4 out of 10. So if you can see, the older we get, then the incidence of hypertension, more people will have hypertension. However, unfortunately, only 5 out of 10 people are aware whether they do have hypertension or not. So half of them. And the other half, they just live their normal life, and by the time they're aware about it, might be too late already. And out of people who aware that they do have hypertension, only 1/3 of them able to achieve the target blood pressure that we want. And as we
Okay.
yeah, the reason why we call it silent killer because it's the major cause of premature death worldwide.
Okay. So, Doc, why is it that only 5 in 10 people are aware of their hypertension status? Just wondering.
Because they got no symptoms. So hypertension have no symptoms, right?
Uh-huh.
So people don't know that they have.
Okay. But actually, they're already in danger zone.
Yes, yes. By the time
Okay.
they aware, they might have, already complications of it.
Okay. So it's extremely, extremely common and there's no symptoms. So,
Yeah.
what are the different stages of hypertension then? So that we know,
Okay. So when
Mm.
we talk about stage of hypertension is yes. So the stage one is for a blood pressure, the systolic, or when the heart is pumping. The number should be between 140 to 159, and the diastolic of 90 to 99. So this is the stage one, which is what we call a mild hypertension. The stage two, which is the moderate one, so between 160 to 179, and the diastolic of 100 to 109. And the severe stage, stage three, is more than 180, and the diastolic of more than 110. Sometimes people do get what we call isolated systolic hypertensions, where only the upper number is high, more than 140, but the lower number is less than 90. Regardless of this, we have to treat it equally important, and then we do have certain medication to be given, and we can talk about it later.
Okay. So at these different stages, yeah, Doc, could you share like what happens?
Okay, so
Or what
most
could
of the
happen?
patients they have what could happen, sure. So most of the patients they don't have any symptoms up until they get to the stage three. Okay, so stage three, then they will have headache, and the headache is usually feels like a heaviness or throbbing headache at the back of their head. And sometimes they can even have sudden blindness because when they have too high of blood pressure, they can burst blood vessels in the eyes, and that can cause sudden visual loss as well. And these are the symptoms. And sometimes they do get other symptoms, for example, chest pain, which sounds like an angina or like a heart attack, but actually what they have is high blood pressure. So any blood pressure more than 180 is what we call hypertensive urgency, and we have to treat immediately. And if you present to a hospital, then we probably have to keep you in until your blood pressure less than 180 before it's safe for you to go home.
Wow. So that by the third stage, that means you already show symptoms.
Yes, but people do get symptoms 160, between blood pressure 160 to 179, but
Uh-huh.
probably less severe because blood pressure
Right?
is something that, develop over many years. So our bodies tend to acclimatize and then get used to it. So that's why they don't develop symptoms, right? But if they have very high blood pressure, that's when they normally get symptoms.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. And of course, a lot of people don't realize it until it's too late, I guess, right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
And that's why we're having this episode today. And what about this one
Sure.
here, Doc? Could you share with us what this slide is about?
Okay, so this slide is mainly to show to all of us here that, if we compare to other causes of mortality in Malaysia or death causes in Malaysia, you can see that, the high blood pressure is the most common causes of mortality, and this is the data from 2008 in Malaysia. Even it's actually more common to smoking. I'm not saying smoking is good, but you can see smoking is second after high blood pressure. So this shows that it's very important to look after yourself in terms of checking your blood pressure.
Wow. So this is, I mean, you could say that this is the number one leading cause of death in Malaysia, is it?
Yes, exactly.
Mm, okay. And we don't realize this until this
Yes,
episode.
yes,
Good.
yes. That's why it's
Okay.
called silent killer. Yeah.
Mm, all right. Okay. So who is at risk? What causes it?
Right. Okay, so the risk factors here. And so I would like to point out that, the first two risk factors that I listed in the slides here is the factors that we cannot change, right? So advancing age, so older we get, then the more risk of us having high blood pressure. And the second risk factors is genetics or our family history. If our mom or dad or siblings have high blood pressure, most likely that we're gonna have it as well. And the rest of the risk factors that I listed here is something that we can do something about it, right? So the first one is overweight or obesity, and then not being physically active, not doing any exercise, and our diet in Malaysia. We have a lot of good food, and good foods means high salt intake as well. All the processed food, all that have high salt content, and that's not good for blood pressure. And the next one is drinking too much alcohol, so that also another risk factors. And emotional stress. We're talking about consistent, prolonged emotional stress that can do that, whether it can be from the work that we do or from family issue or whatever. It can do that. And last one is smoking, that can also do that. The way smoking does it is actually makes our blood vessels become more stiff, and because of that, it can actually make the blood pressure goes up because of that.
Wow. So although there's 2 factors that we cannot control, there are like about 2, 4, 6 other factors that we can control, which is good news
Yes.
still, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. Only 2 we cannot change.
Okay, cool. So the data looks really scary, Doc. How do I know if I have it? What are the signs? Because there is no sign. How do I know? How is it diagnosed, yeah, Doc?
Sure. Right. Okay, so if you can see the next slide here, so I write the symptoms of hypertension. Before we, mention each one of the symptoms here, I would like to point out that, the one thing is that hypertension got no symptoms, right? So that's the most common symptoms is no symptoms. And all right, so the next symptoms is headache. It can cause us to become dizzy. And as I said earlier, it can cause chest pain, it can cause palpitation, rasa berdebar-debar, right? And even difficulty with breathing, feeling a bit nauseous, and even vomiting, and blurred visions or any other visual changes, confusion, and as Nina mentioned earlier, you can get dementia from this, and also nosebleed when it gets too high. Yes.
Wow. But all this is when it's stage 2 and above, right? Stage 1, where you can still do something about it, nobody knows. There's no symptom.
Yeah. Stage 1 usually no symptoms. Stage 1 is no symptoms,
Okay.
but we don't want to wait until we get to stage 3 and before we do something about it.
Right. Okay. Everyone, I'm seeing everybody's like a bit quiet. Do you guys have any questions? If you have any questions, please let us know in the comment. Yeah. I think people are scared by the data. That's what I would say. Okay. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. So, what happens when you have hypertension? What are some complications?
Okay. So here are the list of the complications that we want to avoid, right? So I would like to go from the top to bottom in terms of trying to remember how do we get complications from the hypertension. So the first one is problem with our eyes. We can get a lot of all these changes on the blood vessels within our retina or at the back of our eyes. So if we look with the fundoscope, look at the back of the eyes, you can see all these changes, and you can see I put up the pictures over there. All these red dots and the white dots here, that's not normal. These are the changes that we can see in patients with hypertension, especially chronic hypertension. So blood vessel can burst, and you see the black or look like a flame hemorrhage. This is what we call a flame hemorrhage. That can happen, and people can get blindness from this because their eyeballs will fill up with blood after the blood vessel bursts out. So that's number one complication. And the second one that the reason why people, or we call it the silent killer, because it can affect our heart. So the heart needs to work out harder than usual to pump the blood to the rest of our body. So when the heart is doing this for a long period of time, then the muscle of the heart will get hypertrophy or will become thick, right? And that's not good because after a while the heart will become failing heart. So next stage is become a heart failure. So these are very dangerous for the heart. Okay, and the next thing is ischemic heart disease, or as we know it, serangan jantung heart disease. This is it. The reason why this happens, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a prolonged high blood pressure in your arteries, it can damage the lining of your arteries. And then when it get repaired, it's not going to be a normal looking artery anymore. And then with that, the cholesterol, all these bad deposition will happen, and it can block the blood vessels, and subsequently you will have coronary artery disease, which can lead to ischemic heart disease or serangan jantung, and people can die from it. So that's the serious complications.
And all this
And
is
we're
over
talking
time, right?
about the same.
Sorry?
Sorry, say that again.
And all this is
All this
accumulated
happens,
over
all
time,
year.
right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So we are talking about people with untreated hypertension for 5, 10 years. So it depends on how bad is the high blood pressure that they have. So yeah. The
Wow.
next complication that can happen is also it can affect the brain, right? So people tend to focus on about hemorrhagic stroke, where people can get bleed in the brain, and this can happen immediately. People can be very well at one time, doing their normal life, and suddenly they just drop dead because one of the blood vessels in the brain just burst out because of the high blood pressure, and they can die from it, which is very tragic. And we can also get ischemic stroke, and ischemic stroke is the same principle that I just mentioned about the heart just now, but it causes the blood vessels in our brain to be affected, and then the normal blood flow will be compromised, and because of that, you don't get enough blood supply to part of your brain and causing you to have stroke. Sometimes people don't get any stroke symptoms because what can happen is that because of the high blood pressure, the smaller blood vessels of the brain can be affected, and they can get the chronic microvascular changes, as we call it. So over the times, they don't get stroke symptoms, but what they do get towards the end of their life, they can get dementia because of that. So that's how important, that's how dangerous the hypertension can do to yourself.
Wow. Okay. So that means, yeah,
Yes.
doc, because there's more people getting dementia, would you say there's more people having high blood pressure? Because maybe because of the
Could be
stress
one of the
and all
reasons. Yeah, could be one of
could be one of the factors. Okay.
the
And
reasons,
also,
because dementia has a lot of causes as well. Yeah, that could be one of the factors. Next complication is to our kidneys. So we got 2 kidneys, so we have to look after them. So because kidney is one of the organs in our body that regulates our blood pressure. So if we don't do anything about it, we can start what we call having a leaking kidney, right? So we can lose protein, which normally won't be detected in our urine. But as the kidneys got injured, being affected by the high blood pressure, we start to notice, protein in our urine. And if you don't do anything about it, it can continue and get worse, and people can, get to the stage where they need dialysis.
okay. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like everything starts from high blood pressure. It's a whole host of
Yes,
complications.
exactly. So this is something serious. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one
Yeah.
last thing
So
that I would like to mention here also about aneurysm. So
Mm.
aneurysm is basically a dilation of the blood vessels, and we're talking about the big blood vessels, especially that coming out from our heart, which is the aorta, or the blood vessel within our abdomens, okay, abdominal aorta. So when we do have a chronic high blood pressure, the blood vessels will basically become um, fail and no longer able to withstand the pressure that they receive. So they become dilated and dilated to the point that at some point it can even burst, and that also can be emergency situations and can be life threatening.
Okay, got it. I think there's a sharing from C Star. She's saying that I think the most scary thing is people died not because of hypertension, but because of the complication of hypertension, which is very true, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, and you don't link it to high blood pressure, right? Or hypertension.
Yeah, people think that it's not related, but everything that we do, if you want to treat anything, we have to go to the root cause of that, and the root cause is
Mm,
hypertension, right? Yeah. So
right.
these
Okay.
are the things that we can avoid from happening if you treat the cause first.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds scary, but it's also quite a relief because what that means is that if we can take care of our high blood pressure or, or manage it, or the
Hmm.
hypertension, that means, you will kind of eliminate all these other complications, right?
Yes, that's right.
Or majority of it at least.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, cool. Let's take a look at the next slide. So this one is also about the complication. Can you share with us more on this, Doc?
Yeah, so this is more like just to make it easy for us to understand and to remember. As I said, it's easy to kind of remember from the top to the bottom of our body. So from the brain, it can cause stroke, it can cause bleeding in the brain, and can cause dementia in the eyes, can cause hypertensive retinopathy, also can cause blindness, it can affect our heart, causing heart attack, heart failure. Okay, it can cause also kidneys problems and leading to dialysis even, and sometimes it can also cause elevated blood sugar as well.
Okay. Great. That makes it so much clearer. Okay, so
Yes.
now that we know it can cause a whole host of problems, what are some, let's talk about the treatment. How do you treat hypertension and what are the different types of treatment available?
Okay. So the treatment, I would like to divide the treatment into two parts. All right. So the non-pharmacal treatments or non-medical treatments and the medical medication treatment. So for those who are smoking, so I would love to advocate for smoking cessation. So you're not only eliminating the risk of having hypertension, but other cardiovascular diseases. So smoking is bad to your health. And the next one is you have to do regular exercise, at least 150 minutes per week. So you can try to do like 30 minutes per day, maybe 3 days a week. And if we are someone who have excessive or overweight or obese, then try to get some weight loss. And then enough sleep is very important as well. Sometimes, because of work or stress, then, we cannot get enough sleep that can rise high blood pressure as well because, our heart doesn't get time to rest and, reduce emotional stress. So these are the things that we can try to do to reduce or avoid getting high hypertension or high blood pressure. So if we've done all this and then our blood pressure is still high, unfortunately, like it or not, we have to start taking medications. Okay, so I just list different classes of medications for blood pressure treatment. And number one is a calcium channel blocker, beta blocker, and next one is ARB or angiotensin inhibitor or blocker or ACE inhibitor, diuretics, and alpha blocker. You don't have to worry too much about all these names because these are the kind of treatments that you have to see your doctors, discuss about your conditions, and every um, treatments of hypertension is usually tailored to your underlying problems as well as your age and other factors. So it's not just one treatment fix everyone. It's not like, because my dad is taking calcium blocker, so I should be taking the same medication. It's not. So there's other things that we need to consider before giving or choosing which type of antihypertensive is the most suitable for you.
Okay, fantastic, Doc. What about prevention? How can people reduce their risk? What can I do to prevent high blood pressure or when it's still like very early stage?
Okay.
Can you
So at
actually
the early
reverse high
stage,
blood pressure? Can you actually
yes,
reverse it?
yes, you
Just
can.
wondering. Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it depends on, like, I think that I've seen a lot of my patients who are actually able to reverse hypertension just by, doing regular exercise and weight loss. I think that is probably the most efficacious things that you can do. But some people they already have a lean body weight, but then they still get hypertension. So with that, they cannot lose any more weight because that's them, right? So their blood vessel probably already has stiffened up, so can't do much about it. But if that's the case, we have to look other things that they can do, either smoking cessations or reduce emotional stress and all that. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. And for those who already have it, it's the same advice, is it, Doc? What's the most important steps to take
Okay. I think the most
for medical?
important advice, if someone who already have it, right, take
Mm.
the medications if it's prescribed to you regularly, religiously. And number two is that try to look after what you eat, because high salt intake, processed food, all these can bring up your blood pressure.
Okay.
Salt, because I think the daily limit of salt intake for ourselves is basically one teaspoon. It's very small amount, but a lot of people eat a lot of salt, and sometimes we don't even realize with processed food, because we
Mhm.
don't see what is put up into the food that we process.
Yeah, it's also lifestyle, right? Because you're so busy working, you're hungry, you
Mhm.
just stuff yourself. You don't know, you don't think twice about what you're putting in, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And nowadays, I would like to mention about this as well. Is no longer about the same. For example, about 10, 20 years ago, where if you want to get something to eat, you have to get up, go out, buy at least. If you don't want to cook, you buy. Nowadays, you can just sit down, take out your phone, click, 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 and then you got grab food or whatever comes to you. So all these, we're taking away all this regular exercise that we need to do. It's no longer about back then, well, we got harmful food. Nowadays, people just use the phone.
Yeah, you're right because it goes straight to your door or table, even, right?
Yes,
You don't even have to
yes,
walk.
yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
all
That's
right. So I guess go back to basics. Work for your food, physical.
right.
Okay. So Doc, at the end of the day, w- now that we know all this, at the end of the day, Doc, what do you want people to take home?
Okay, my take home message is well, probably I would just touch about this first, the common misconception. Would that be
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes,
So,
definitely.
yeah, people think about that hypertension can only affect old people. That's not true. Young people can also get hypertensions.
Ah,
And I'm sorry to say that, because I previously worked in overseas, and hypertension in young people is not so common, probably because of the race and the genetics, and probably also because of the lifestyle. But since I've been working back in Malaysia, that I'm quite surprised actually. I've seen a lot of cases where people before they're 30 years old, they already been getting hypertension and already taking at least two different classes of antihypertensions. So yeah,
okay.
yeah, is completely
They're
taking
getting
it.
younger and younger, is
Um,
it? Ones who are taking meds?
yes, yes, I believe it's probably because of our food and also lifestyle. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that tells us a lot. about what we do here in Malaysia. So yeah, so take home message, it can affect all people, but also young people. Young people also is not safe from hypertension. And number two is, people think that hypertension is not a serious condition. They're wrong. It can be very bad, very serious complication that can happen from this. And next one is hypertension has no obvious symptoms. Again, that's not true. Hypertension has no symptoms. That's the most common symptom is no symptoms. Okay, and I can see some our audience here was asking whether if they have a normal BMI that they will not get hypertension. That's not true. People with a normal BMI can also have hypertension, right? And last one that I want to point out here is people sometimes scared about taking the medications for whatever reason, but they worry that it might affect the kidneys or the liver. But in fact, as a matter of fact, it's the other way around. By not taking the medications, you are exposing risk to your heart and your liver and also your kidneys. As I mentioned earlier, from all this complication from hypertension. So do take your medications to prevent all this complication that can affect your
That's
kidneys.
a very good point. Thank you, Doc, for sharing that.
No problem.
Okay, so at the end of the day, Doc, what's your take-home message for people?
Yeah. So the take-home message here is number one, hypertension, no symptoms. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think it's probably a good idea to have blood pressure monitoring at home. Nowadays, I look up on the Shopee, I think you can get it, probably less than hundreds or around 100 ringgit. And you just put it at home, you can monitor, once or twice a day. If it's good, you can do it once a week, things like that. Because if you come to the doctors, obviously you're probably stressed, anxious to meet the doctor, your blood pressure will go up. And it's not easy for us to straight away diagnose that you have high blood pressure just by one encounter with you. So if you have a blood pressure diary, which what I normally advise my patients to do, then we can see the trend. And by then we can decide whether you do have hypertension or not, or if you already have hypertension and on medication, then we can try to optimize your blood pressure medication to achieve the target that we want. So yeah, having a monitor, BP monitor at home is really a good idea. And last one is medications. So take home message is that take the medication if you're already on it, and that will prevent you from getting all these complications.
Wow, very, very powerful, Doc. Thank you so much, especially your BP diary. That's so cute.
Yes,
and it's useful, right? Speaking of BP diary, I have a question on that, Doc. How many times should you be measuring your BP and when? How many times in a day and which point in the day?
Okay, so I would suggest to do it twice a day in the beginning, right? And the way to do it, you have to be relaxed. Don't do it after you've been running around the house, look after your children or something like that. Okay, so you should be at rest. Don't speak, sit down, and just take the blood pressure in the morning and probably at night before you go into bed. Okay, because just a study shows that focusing or try to lower the blood pressure at night times will probably lower the risk of cardiovascular complications more than focusing on the daily or daytime blood pressure. So do twice a day in the beginning. If your blood pressure is good, you can maybe do it once a week or twice a week, and so on. But the moment you have problems again, and you have to do, of course, regular again. So it depends on the blood pressure trend.
All right, awesome, fantastic, Doc. Okay, so we've come to the end of Doc's sharing. So if you have, we're gonna look into to answer your Q&As now, right? So if you have some questions, please let us know in the comments. In the meantime, I'm gonna go to Momo, our favorite audience who's always asking questions. Doctor, hypertension ni boleh menyebabkan pembuluh, I'm not sure if this is my BM teruk, pembuluh darah pecah dan kematian otak ke? Wow, what a first question, straight to the point. Doc, can you decipher this question and answer it? Thank you, Momo.
Okay, betul. Thank you, Momo. So, ya betul. So, kalau kita punya tekanan darah memang sangat tinggi dan menyebabkan kita punya pembuluh darah dalam otak pecah dan menyebabkan bleeding ataupun pendarahan dalam otak, dan kalau pendarahan itu besar menyebabkan kematian. So, yes, itu boleh berlaku.
Wow, okay. Next question is also from Momo. Adakah hypertension hypertension hanya untuk golongan umur atau remaja dan kanak-kanak juga? Ya, Doc? I think Doc answered this, but let's recap that.
So, hypertension usually berlaku kepada at least orang yang 20 tahun ke atas, but ada juga yang di kalangan teenagers. Tapi kalau blood pressure ataupun high blood pressure ni berlaku di kalangan orang yang terlalu muda macam ni, kita kena terpaksa look for other secondary causes. Okay, so kebanyakan yang kita bercakap hari ni adalah we talking about essential hypertension ataupun tekanan darah tinggi yang selalunya kita tak akan jumpa punca. That is a primary, but we also have a secondary hypertension yang disebabkan oleh contohnya pheochromocytoma ataupun problem dengan gland ataupun kelenjar yang berada on top of our kidneys, okay, adrenal gland yang bertindak lebih aktif, hyperadrenalism, or other causes like renal artery stenosis and all that. So it's not common, but it can happen. But if it do happen, maksudnya kita kena cari apakah punca dia.
Okay, got it. Satu lagi soalan from Momo before we continue to other people. Doktor, betul ke kalau terlalu hypertension akan menyebabkan fatty liver? Because I think this is an important question. Ya ke, Dok?
Oh, tak. So hypertension tak akan menyebabkan fatty liver, tapi hypertension selalunya macam kita selalu dengar yang penyakit tiga serangkai tu. So kalau high cholesterol, yes, it can affect the liver, it can cause fatty liver lah. But one thing that I would like to point out here also, kalau kita selalu buat exercise, kita nak jaga kita punya hypertension risk. Melalui exercise, kita akan also mengelakkan daripada terkena fatty liver. Ataupun kalau kita dah ada fatty liver, by doing exercise, it will help to stop the progression of the fatty liver.
Okay, awesome. That sounds good. Now let's go to a question from Elvin. Who's very blessed because dia kata, thank God, Doc ada kat sini to share all this information. Elvin's question is, what can we eat to avoid hypertension? And can hypertension affect kids below 5?
Okay.
2 questions.
I think the first question, apa yang or what to eat to avoid getting hypertension. I think probably is what not to eat, as I mentioned earlier. Because there's too many things that you can eat, but in terms of specifically food wise, I would say healthy diet is what you need to focus on. Healthy balanced diet, okay, and that's not also good for hypertension but also for general well-being. And cut down salt, stress is not cut down the salt. And for the second question, whether it can affect the children below 5, no, it's not common. But if it happens, then we have to look other causes for it. But usually, no, it doesn't affect kids below 5.
Okay, got it. So in terms of food, is reduced salt, I would say. Yeah.
Yes.
And no, doesn't affect kids below 5. Okay. Going back to Momo, I want to look at this question because I think it's important to recap and bring home the message. Doktor, saya ada terbaca satu artikel di Facebook, orang mengatakan ubat hypertension hanya memburukkan kesihatan, bukan menyembuh. Betul ke? Pasal ramai orang kecam artikel tu. Doc, take it away.
Okay, so macam saya cakap tadi, so ubat darah tinggi ni dia ada beberapa kelas yang berbeza. Selalunya bila kita pilih untuk ubat apa yang untuk kita start tu, contohlah kalau orang tu dah ada diabetes, kencing manis, obviously kita akan selalunya ubat yang dipanggil ACE inhibitors ataupun ARB digunakan untuk target dia punya blood pressure. Dan ubat ni selalunya kita akan bagi, dan after 2 weeks after kita just mulakan ubat tu, kita akan check renal function, check buah pinggang dia. Kenapa saya cakap macam tu? Sebab sometimes dia ada tekanan darah tinggi itu disebabkan oleh underlying condition, for example renal artery stenosis, di mana dia punya pembuluh darah yang supply darah kepada dia punya buah pinggang itu sebenarnya sudah tersumbat ataupun sempit, dan bila kita bagi ubat yang tadi itu, dia menyebabkan buah pinggang a little bit affected. The moral of the story here, I think, is not to just take medication and forget about it. Maksudnya kita hanya beli ubat, lepas tu dah tak jumpa doktor, terus pergi ambil ubat dekat farmasi je tanpa jumpa mana-mana doktor. Itu not a good way of managing apa-apa medical condition pun. Okay? Because setiap ubat yang kita bagi, kita sentiasa kena ada follow up. Doktor akan check kesihatan. Sometimes, for example, kita dah ada masalah buah pinggang, tekanan darah tinggi. Lepas tu, dah jumpa doktor, dah dengar cakap saya hari ni, balik rumah, buat exercise, lose 10 kilo, 20 kilo of weight, and you ambil ubat juga, and by then, mungkin your blood pressure is already normalized because you dah lose a lot of weight, and maybe you punya ubat darah tinggi tadi, you already can cut down or even can stop it, right? So, if let's say, you take that medication, you probably will lower too much of your blood pressure, and that's not good for yourself. So the important is that it's not just take and forget, it's basically take and then usually continue to follow up with the doctors, and everything discussed with the doctors.
Okay, I think that's a very good answer. We're going to answer one more question before we go to the quiz. Question from SPN. Hi, SPN. Hi, doctor. I feel like I am having palpitation and sometimes difficult in breathing. Can I monitor my blood pressure for a week before seeing a doctor? BP diary.
Okay. Yes, I think that is a very good thing to do. So it depends on how long have you been having these symptoms. If you have a very short period of palpitations, yes, you can monitor first and check your blood pressure and comes to see doctors. That's number one thing that you can do. But if you're having palpitation and it is non-stop, it continues, don't wait. Go and see the doctor as soon as possible, because it could also mean something else. It could also be what we call atrial fibrillation or SVT, so other problem with the heart. So it's not just blood pressure problem. But if you have these intermittent problems and where you normally find in between, take your time, get your blood pressure. You don't have to wait for a week. 3 days, 4 days is enough, as long as we can see the trend and the average blood pressure before seeing the doctors, and we can advise you what to do next.
Okay, awesome. I think that's a brilliant question and brilliant answer as well. Thank you, Doc. All right, so now what we're going to do is it is quiz time. And as mentioned in the earlier part of the show, there are these flask bottles up for grabs. But what do you need to do in order to win? First, you got to be sure to share this video out at least 3 times. And remember to set the share post to public so that everybody can see it. And then answer the 3 questions that we're going to show on the screen in a single comment, and you're on your way to win the prizes. So let me recap that. First, share this video out 3 times. Remember to set the post to public so everybody can see it. And answer the 3 questions that we're going to ask it on the screen in a single comment. And we're going to select 3 winners based on the correct answers and the shared post. So are you ready? Who wants to win? Let me know in the comment. Okay. Let's go into the questions then. All right, question number 1. Hypertension only affects old people, true or false? Hypertension only affects old people, true or false? Heart disease, stroke, and colon cancer is the most common complication of hypertension, true or false? Heart disease, stroke, and colon cancer is the most common complication of hypertension, true or false? And the last one is hypertension has extremely obvious symptoms, true or false? Hypertension has extremely obvious symptoms, true or false? Answer the question in a single comment and you're on your way to win prizes. All right, so let's go back to the Q&A while we wait for the winners. Okay. All right, next question is Tini's question is awesome. Tini Matini. Can blood pressure medication be stopped once blood pressure is under control? I think you somewhat answered that, but let's go through it again.
Okay. Right. So to answer this question is mainly you have to discuss with your doctors about it. Right. So sometimes your blood pressure is normal because of taking the medications. But once you stop it, it might go up again. Right. So what I normally do, it depends on whether how long have you had the high blood pressure. If you're young, still young, and no other underlying problems, then you can talk to your doctors and you can try to stop it, and then you can continue monitoring blood pressure at home to see what's the measurement like. And if it's normal, still normal, yes, you can stop it. But normally, if you're already on, one or two or three different classes of antihypertensive, I wouldn't recommend to stop it because you probably miss that. So yeah, as a summary, I think probably just discuss with your doctors and then they will advise you further.
Okay, but it's definitely possible, right?
It's possible, but only for young populations usually.
I see. Okay. Next question is from Gloria Jackson. If someone is not physically active but her BMI is normal, I'm not sure if you answered this earlier. Does this expose her to hypertension too? I think you answered yes, right, Doc?
Yes. So yeah. So even if we have normal BMI, yes. So the risk of hypertension is still there. So it can still happen.
Okay, got it. Next question is a continuation from SB Yan. Doctor, after drinking coffee, I will feel the palpitation. Will this cause hypertension and should I stop drinking coffee?
Okay, so I think if you have palpitation after drinking coffee, this can means that you might have different problems. It might be what we call supraventricular tachycardia, where the heart is pumping too fast. It can be regular or irregular. And the way to diagnose this is see your doctors when that happens, or nowadays we can have, the smartwatch. And smartwatch is not all bad. Sometimes it's good. It can tell you your heart rate. If that happens, see what's your heart rate like, whether it's a normal or is it irregular. Okay. So, and based on that, you can have that information, go to see your doctors and discuss about it. Whether you should stop drinking coffee or not. If every time you drink coffee that happens, yes, you should stop drinking coffee, or you can try decaffeinated coffee. If you're okay with the taste, but yeah, I would probably advise to stop drinking coffee or cut down. So go by your symptoms. If you're okay taking less coffee and then you've got no symptom, yeah, go for it.
Okay, got it. Couple of questions left from Romi Sahraza on LinkedIn. Is there any drastic way to lower the BP? I would like to know this as well.
Right. Take blood pressure medication. Ubat. Yes, makan ubat. You makan ubat, terus turun, insyaAllah.
Okay, got it. A question from Jessie Liu. Does BP reading correlates with age? I think yes. Risk factor kan tadi.
In some ways, yes, but not all, because like I said earlier, young people also can get, high blood pressure. But the older we get, the stiffer our blood vessels become, and that's when we can be exposed to high blood pressure.
Okay, got it. Next question is from Atila Jamaluddin. Why does lack of sleep cause high blood pressure? Does it? I didn't know that. Let us know, Doc.
Because when we don't get enough sleep, we get stressed. The next day we become too tired, and then we don't give enough time for the heart to rest. So these are the reason why. And then normally when we sleep at night, our blood pressure will drop. So if we put up a machine, what we call 24 hours ambulatory blood pressure monitor. Then the study shows that during at night time when we sleep, generally our blood pressure will become low. But if we don't sleep, we don't give that chance for the heart to rest, and then it becomes continuously high, like during daytime. And then over the years, that can become a problem, and then the high blood pressure will become permanent problem.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for that question as well. Okay, last question before we announce the correct answers and the winners. Jessie Liu. Tapi yang ni you kena decipher sikit question ni, Dok. Medication for life is got that if got 3 condition, especially high BP. You faham tak question tu, Dok? Sorry, Jessie. Yeah.
Okay, I've tried to decipher. She's asking whether, if we have that 3 condition, figures rangkai, whether we need to take medication for life or not. Right. I think, if we have diabetes, we have high cholesterol and hypertension, my advice is, yes, take it for life, because diabetes, yes, you might get some symptoms, but sometimes people do not get any symptoms. And hypercholesterol also does not have symptoms, and high blood pressure, as we talked about earlier, also do not have symptoms. So if we stop these medications and then we just feel like, or just think that we are okay, actually we are not. And these 3 things in combination can actually double or triple your risk of having all those complications that I mentioned earlier. So yes, I think if you already have 3 different medical conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol, you have to take medication for life.
All right, good. Jessie says, yes, you answered spot on. She says, sorry for the typo mistakes. It's okay, because now we're living in a world where we now need to be able to read and decipher typo language as well, right? Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much, guys. That's all the questions. Let's take a look at the quiz questions and answer. Okay, so the first question is, hypertension only affects old people, Doc. True or false?
It's false.
Okay. Although more young people are getting it, but it's false because 5-year-olds don't.
Yes, false.
Okay.
Yes.
Question number 2, heart disease, stroke, and colon cancer, the most common complication of hypertension. True or false, Doc?
Okay, this is a tricky question, but it's actually false. This colon cancer is not related to hypertension.
Yeah, it's related to our previous episode, but not to hypertension. Okay. Third question is, hypertension has extremely obvious symptoms. True or false, Doc?
False.
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is false, false, false. So let's take a look at who our winners are. Okay, and our winners are Afifa Fifi, Jeannie Mark, and C Stars. Congratulations for getting all 3 correct. Okay. Yeah, congratulations. All right, so we have our winners. Thank you so much. Please make sure our winners, congratulations once again. We will be contacting you after this within a day to get your details. So be sure to check your Facebook Messenger inbox so that you know how to claim the prizes. All right, thank you so much, Doc, for today. I have definitely learned a lot. I think the 3 things that I thought was the biggest thing. Share with us what are the 3 things that you learned from today. But for me, it's keep a BP diary. I mean, how cute can it be? BP diary. Keep it.
Yes.
And number 2, there is no symptom. The symptom for hypertension is there is no symptom. And number 3, if you can monitor and take care of your hypertension early on, that will eliminate a whole host of diseases later on in life. Yeah. So that's the biggest takeaway for me. So congratulations to our winners. We hope you had a fantastic episode where you learned so much. Thank you to Dr. Fikri. Let's give him a round of applause, shall we?
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. My pleasure.
Yeah. So if you found today's episode really useful, you appreciate the tips, the info, the insights, please share this video or tag this video to your friends. You never know whose life it's going to make a difference to or whose life you're going to save. So give us a like and lots of love while you're at it. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. Take care of yourself and each other, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Doc.